What is a habit, from work, daily activities etc., that you catch yourself doing in inappropriate situations? I work as a casino dealer. To call our managers over quickly we make a kissing sound. I guess the thinking is that it's an unusual sound to hear in a public place, and it works well enough. Gets their attention. Anyway, was at the supermarket using the self-checkout machine. It stopped working. So of course, without thinking, looked the assistant dead in the eye and started kissing at her. Caught myself and stopped pretty quickly, but the damage was done. Until she came over. Then I thought the only way to save face was explaining it by saying I do that at work. Yeah, not the greatest. TLDR. Made a supermarket assistant believe I'm a rent boy. My mates all clear their hands when doing day-to-day things. I find it amusing. I work in a store where the computer screens are tactile. I worked all summer and when it was over, I went back to school and tried logging and touching the screen. The guy next to me was looking at me like I never used a computer before. My brain was fricked. Both my computers have touch screens and I look like an idiot when I try to scroll on a normal PC. I work in technical theater where things are often being yelled at each other, mostly safety things. A typical call goes heads up on deck. Pipe 8 coming in, down. To which the correct response, if you heard another in the way of pipe 8, thank you pipe. Often there is a shortening of things like if they yell cable is coming in upstage left by the ladder you just yell thank you cable or thank you upstage left. It has often moved into my real life, where someone yells something like there's a soda in the fridge. Thank you fridge. When I used to coach kids, my way of talking at work spilled over to the rest of my life. I often found myself telling adults they were being silly. Better that than telling some 10-year-old you're being a C. I work on an auto quoting application for an auto insurance corporation. Testing my code and recreating bugs often requires me to quickly tab through fields, such as name, address, DOB, and fill them with bogus info or test names. More than once I've started registering for something online and just quickly tabbed through the page filling in bogus data before realizing. Dude, if you hate it, automate it. Autofill those forms. Work in IT. I constantly lock my computer at home. I don't even have a password. IT. Doesn't have a password. Something's fishy. I am a preschool teacher. I've managed to stop myself from asking my friends if they need to go to the bathroom and reminding them to wash their hands when they're done. However, I still get crap for saying things like, that's a great observation and good question and okay, friends, let's all, in everyday conversation. Every time you catch yourself doing that, follow it up with genius so they just think you're being a sarcastic douche instead. I always look at metal things and check for rust corrosion. My last job was a lot of chipping and painting. When answering my phone I would at times answer it just like thank you for calling. Then I would realize my mistake and my friends would laugh. I dictate phone calls for deaf and hard of hearing people. We are supposed to use punctuation when dictating. I often punctuate myself when having conversations with people. How are you ? That's cool period. Oops, sorry. People always give me strange looks when I do it lol. As a gymnastics coach I was encouraged to refer to all equipment by its color to help the children. I find myself constantly stating the colors of objects in adult conversations. My old coach named the mats. A restaurant I used to work at had a policy of announcing corner when you were about to walk in or out of the kitchen. This was so that nobody would bump into each other or spill a tray of food when coming and going. As a server, this meant saying corner a lot. One time, after a particularly long week at work, I announced corner when I was turning left onto the highway to go home. It completely startled me when I heard myself say it too because I wasn't expecting to hear anything, especially not anything out of my own mouth. It was 100% reflex. Tired, overworked, 2 AM reflex. We do the same thing where I currently bus, in addition to yelling down, up, in, and out whenever they apply. In addition to the restaurant staples of behind you and above you, I've shouted corner at the dang grocery store. I don't know if it's inappropriate but I often prompt people to do things. I'm at a school for kids with severe autism and it often requires a lot of redirection and physical prompting. pointing to something, in order to get whatever needs to be done. I find myself tapping my friends on the shoulder and pointing to what I want them to do. I just had a vision of myself at a party at your house. You poured me a drink and then pointed for me to take it. It wasn't weird. I check out everyone's veins, and sometimes rate them on what size cannula I think I could stick in them. My husband has those big, manly veins. I call them Nurse P. Source: used to be an RN. I'm a cashier at a grocery store, and I have successfully trained myself to automatically think of the clue code whenever I see a fruit or vegetable. This became particularly embarrassing when I looked at a crescent moon once, and it kind of looked like a banana. So immediately I thought 4011. I am half a life away from my time as a cashier, and still remember the code for bananas. MT son thinks I am super smart. At the self-checkout lane, at the grocery, when I don't have to hit the lookup item button. So, I got that going for me. As a former emergency ambulance attendant, EMT, when off duty I have caught myself drifting into oncoming traffic at red lights where all forward lanes are blocked. I work at McDonald's on the drive-thru and sometimes I answer my cell phone with a very polite "Hi, what can I get for you?" Whoops. I know that feeling. As a manager it can be awkward when you answer the phone saying "Hi, what sounds good today?" I pat my leg to call my dog over. I do that to people now. I bet that goes over well with the ladies. Calling walls bulkheads, ceilings overheads, and floors decks. Thanks for teaching me what a bulkhead is. I used to work as a backpacking guide. For whatever reason backpacking food tends to leave me gassy, probably because it is dehydrated. Being out in the wilderness you quickly get used to farting all the time and smelling and listening to everyone else fart. Now that I'm in civilized society I really struggle to hold farts in. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think we should have to hold our farts in, damn it. So my habit is not holding my fart in and letting it waft. Geologist here. Field manners are so hard to break. I'm the only person I know who drives a stick shift. Every single time I get into someone else's car, I find myself trying to depress the clutch before I turn the key in the ignition. That moment of panic when you have to stop and there's no clutch pedal. I'm an EMT and I forget that talking about dead people and bodily fluids isn't normal dinner conversation. Med-C. My dinner conversation tends to unsettle the uninitiated if I get carried away. Oh, we got the coolest photos through today. Had neat little limb buds and everything. Cue stunned looks and bad feels. I can't have been the only one to raise my hand at inappropriate times after my first few years of school. For me it was most often at the dinner table. Speaking of school junk, y'all must have called your elementary school teacher's mom at some point. The shame of it. I am a male 3rd grade teacher. I've been called mom 3 times this year. I started saying regrettably instead of unfortunately because my old job was full of petty, nitpicky buttholes who thought that one was far superior to the other. I worked as a camp counselor for a summer for 7 to 10-year-olds. After I got back to school, I was doing a lot of group projects and I would find myself deciding which get-to-know-you games we would do before we started our work and being extra cheery and counselor why with my group mates, who probably thought I was weird as frick. Well, I'd imagine some people appreciate the person who initiates communication. Working in a busy gas station, I'm constantly running and gunning, trying to mop up spills, wipe off counters, stock items as quickly as I can. This happens at home too. I find myself running across the house and back trying to find cleaning utensils and such. Dang, you are way more motivated than I was when I worked at a gas station. I'm a PhD student studying behavioral science stuff and spend a lot of my day hand annotating videos of participants' nonverbal behavior, gestures, eye gaze, head movements, etc. After long stints of this, I can't not notice the details of your gestures in excruciating detail. On a number of occasions I've literally said, "Wow, you have gorgeous eye contact" to someone on a first date. I play rugby, and in rugby, if you drop the ball forwards, it's a penalty and the other team gets the ball. Also in rugby, you can kick the ball whenever you want. Solution: anytime I drop the ball, I kick it, and I never get penalized for drops. This habit transferred over to my day-to-day life. This morning I dropped my phone and subsequently kicked it into a bush. I am American. I know that dropping the ball forwards is a knock-on and results in a scrum to the opposing team. I know this is different than a penalty. I was using simple terms to explain the situation to Reddit. Another reason not to drop your kids. I used to work at a restaurant, nearly 2 years, and would answer the phone with the standard, "Thank you for calling establishment. My name is Mookie and I'll be glad to help you." Then I worked reception in an office for a year, and answering phones went like this. "Thank you for calling the organization. You have reached reception. How may I help you?" For the 6 months after I left that job, any phone I answered started off with "Thank you for calling," and then I'd trail off because they were calling me. So it'd be weird to speak of myself as an establishment. We are not a monolith. "Thank you for calling. Oh crap, unfortunately I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave your name and number." UHHBEP. Saved it. I'm a nurse. When I dine with other nurses we usually talk about nurse stuff. Code blues, code browns, blood, heart attacks, gomas, etc. When I dine with other nurses and lay people we have to really dial it back or risk grossing them out. The one exception was dinner with 2 nurses and a cop. The cop kept right up with us and was totally fine. I say frick all the time. I often forget that bothers some people. Interned in a steel mill for a summer, went back to school swearing like a sailor, and I still haven't been able to break the habit over a year later. I'm a server. I sometimes say through when I'm going through doors and behind when I'm walking behind someone. Also in reply to someone telling me something I sometimes say heard. So annoying. Not me, but the last guy I dated was a bartender. A good one, at that. One night, after a long shift, he came over and crashed. We're in my room and he's asleep, so I just kinda hang out and lay beside him. In the midst of snoring and sleep twitches, he asked me if I needed a refill on my beer. I'm a drug counselor. I forget that talking about H.M., coke, STDs, and hypodermic needles isn't considered normal conversation. I seriously forget that people are uncomfortable talking about drugs, which makes for some weird conversations. I used to work for Chick-fil-A in high school. I would always say my pleasure in the most awkward situations outside of work. It makes me uncomfortable when they say that. Come on, I've worked fast food, I know how that job goes. I'm a musician and a marching drummer. I find myself tapping out drum music wherever I am. I'd be lying if I said it never got me in trouble. Oh yeah, I've been drumming for 8 years or so, and I tap on crap constantly. If I'm in the car with friends and something crappy comes on the radio, I'll say how crappy it is while subconsciously drumming along to it. After I've learned a lot about something, for example, point of sale hardware software, I look at it everywhere I go and annoy the frick out of my wife telling her about it. Cop here. I have to stop myself from trying to pull cars over when I see them commit traffic infractions while I'm driving my own car. I have 2 toddlers at home. I have a hard time preventing myself from congratulating my friends and co-workers for completing simple tasks. You washed your hands? Good job. My job is to correct people's English. I feel like an butthole when I reflexively correct my so's English. It's okay, they're doing their best. I work as a casino dealer, and every time we handle money we have to show clean hands, which is simply turning our hands palm up to show we aren't palming any money, chips, whatever. So after doing this hundreds of times per day, I sometimes find myself doing it on completely innocuous occasions, like buying milk or shaking someone's hand. It looks quite bizarre. Thinking Control Z in real life when I mess something up, and the dread of realizing it won't work. When Skyrim first came out, I found myself trying to quick save in real life, and I always panicked when I realized that I couldn't undo mistakes. I've been 80% of the way to having my dong out to take a pee before realizing that I was surrounded by dormitories. I spent so much time in fields, pee when I smoked, that it just became habit. Every time I take my dog out to do her business, I feel compelled to pull my dong out and pee in the bushes too. I live in a townhome community. It's just good time management. Damn it. As a chef in a busy kitchen, When I am in Walmart, or anywhere I am passing behind or beside people, I will yell behind loudly so they don't turn around or back up. In a kitchen it is essential since we all usually have hot pans, tongs, or knives in our hands, but in a grocery store the risk of injury is nil, so my yelling is not appreciated. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.